Welcome back, everyone, to episode 24 of Show and Tell. This is just my small adventure to highlight the creators and contributors to the Magic community. Today, I'm super excited to be joined by streamer, cosplayer, model, Bird of Paradise, and self-proclaimed bulk goblin, Nexy. Nexy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello.
Oh gosh,
I'm here.
you're here. We're doing the thing. I've been a little lagging on my end of doing episodes, but I'm so happy to sit down with you. And it's wild, kind of before we started, we were talking about a little bit about MTG Vegas, but I think met you in person for the first time at the previous Vegas, the Magic 30.
Yeah.
You were with Emma. I think you guys were kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those like, hey, I kind of know you from Twitter. Introduction things.
I remember the little Fibblethip pin that you gave me, and I put it on my lanyard.
That's right.
And I don't know if I told you about this. I had a really funny story with it where because I was at Magic 30, there was a woman who was walking around with a Fibblethip statue.
Yeah.
And I pointed at her and I was like, oh my God, like I have a Fibblethip pin. And she was like, oh, well, here you go. And she gave me the Fibblethip secret lair.
That is
all because of that pin, which was I forget what it was called, but it was where you put like all the cards together and it's like a Where's Waldo of Fibblethip.
Oh yeah. Those were, it's like I don't know if it's like a panorama photo or like whatever, but
yeah,
I do remember those cards, the, whatever it was called, but that's super cool. Yeah, you did tell me that. I remember being super excited. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Like, Fibblethip was the coolest, and like the fact that you got really a free secret lair out of it, like, was amazing.
Yeah.
So
I was like totally blown away. That was the first secret lair I ever got.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Gosh, I remember when they first announced secret lairs. I was like, okay, like whatever. Like, I think I bought like the first 3, not really thinking, and then it just kind of was one of those things like, oh, they're gonna do one of these every week, every 2 weeks. So I kind of like stuck because I'm a big collector. I just like to I like collecting cards, and like the alt arts and stuff are pretty cool. But it kind of was like, oh yeah, this is not sustainable for me in my wallet after the first like 6.
There's so much.
Yeah.
There's so much. And now that they do like the giant drops where it's like, here's like $1,000 worth of product, both foil and non-foil for you.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, I can't do this.
Yeah, it gets rough, and it's hard because and gosh, sometimes the arts are so cool, and you're just like, oh man, like it'd be kind of cool to have like, I think I bought like the Rebecca Guay, one of her secret lairs, and they just announced the 14th, 15th Doctor, like the Doctor Who secret lair is gonna have the 2 new Doctors. So I'm like, oh, I'm definitely gonna buy that one because I'm a big Doctor Who fan. Mm-hmm. So it's just. That's how they get you.
Seriously.
So, but anyways, I kind of bopping around. So I always kind of joke around. I like to start at the beginning. So why don't you talk to me about your start at Magic? When did you start playing, and what kind of got you into the game?
So I started playing Magic back at the end of 2018. Okay. I was a streamer for a couple years on Twitch, and I went to TwitchCon 2018, which was I think it was in San Jose. Oh. The TwitchCon had these swag bags, and they had the M19 welcome decks in them. I had never heard of Magic. I had never seen it. Like, I even still I have this shelf that has all of these like boxes from like pre-releases and stuff.
Yeah.
Just behind this poster, I still have the boxes from those welcome decks.
Oh, that's awesome.
I never got rid of them. But I opened it up, and the first card that I saw, this was I think it was like an Orzhov deck. I can't remember. But the first card that I saw was Gravewaker. And okay. I know that's just like a random rare from M19, but I fell in love with the artwork. That blue like bird going across the art. I was just like, this is stunning. How do I play this?
Yeah.
So a ton of my friends who I was with at that event, like they gave me their welcome decks, and so I just started like collecting these cards. And then I was talking to one of my cousins, and she taught me how to play Magic. And then suddenly I was just like looking up, where do I go to play Magic? Didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I found a store back in the town that I used to live in, which unfortunately now has since shut down, but I found a store and I started drafting.
Oh, wow.
Draft was my very first thing that I was like, this is what we're doing.
Yep.
I remember my pack one pick one because we were drafting Guilds of Ravnica.
Okay.
It was an assassin trophy.
Ooh.
And I still have it in a hard case. I wish I had it prepared like on my desk, but that was my very first pack one pick one was an assassin's trophy, and it was amazing.
It's a good card.
So yeah, really, really good. I actually run a copy of it in my Grist deck. I love it so much. And like I have been a Golgari fan like ever since. And black is like my favorite color. Green is like a great supplementary color. Like, but yeah, I was a drafter for years, and then actually a couple months after I got into Magic, at the time I was on this podcast that's called Video Game Bang. It's still running. They are considered the #1 gaming and geek culture podcast in Northern California.
Hey, that's not nothing.
Yeah. So I was a co-host on there for about a year. And the main host, Corey Vincent, he was like, hey, I have a ton of Magic cards that like belong to one of my old friends, and he's never going to pick these up. Do you want them? And I was just like, hell yeah. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So my collection went from the size of one of those, like, they had like a M19 like welcome bundle.
Yeah.
I think is what it was, and it had like one of the pull-out lids instead of like the top. Like, I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah.
But it had like a little booklet to teach you how to play Magic and packs and things like that. It was very different from like bundles that we see today or like bundles of old, but so I had one of those, and that was like all my cards could fit in that. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly all of my cards fit into a 4-row. And I was like, oh my God, like I have so many cards. I have such a huge collection. And now like 5 years later, I have an entire room. You see like this all behind me.
Boxes.
I have an estimated 200,000 cards in my collection.
That's
200,000.
That's a lot of cards.
Lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of cards. It's a lot of cards.
And I need to cut down on that because a lot of it is just duplicates, and being a limited player through all these years and just opening boxes and people giving them to me at events. And I opened a P.O. box because people just wanted to mail me bulk. So like,
that's funny.
That has been my history and development of like playing Magic. My start was just getting a little welcome pack, seeing the art, falling in love with it, and here I am.
Here you are, 5 years later.
Yeah,
it's funny
seriously
how many people I think see the art in Magic, and that's like what prompts them to want to start playing.
Yeah,
because there are a lot of like fantastic art pieces in the game. It's pretty wild how how much great art actually gets produced because of Magic. I think I actually saw a statistic once that 80%. Don't quote me, but I think like 80% of all fantasy art pieces produced in the world are for Magic. Like that's
really,
yeah, it's some wild number that because of how many cards. It's probably higher now with how many cards they pump out a year, but
seriously,
just the amount of card art that gets commissioned via Magic, like they corner that fantasy art market. But
yeah,
and it takes all types, right? Like some people get into card games because of gameplay styles, but like if the art, I know there's card game. We were kind of talking about Star Wars card games before we started, and there have been certain Star Wars card games that, as someone who's a big Star Wars fan, don't quite scratch the right itch because the art isn't quite there. Probably because I've been spoiled because of Magic.
I think like another TCG that like people have tried getting me into, but I could not do it for the art and also for certain aspects of gameplay. Yu-Gi-Oh is one that just never could do it for me. Yeah. I didn't like the artwork, and it wasn't even necessarily just the art, but I hated the borders of the cards.
Yeah, no, that's...
And it's like the text is worse than what we experienced in Strixhaven.
Yeah.
It was so much. The arbitrary numbers, why are we dealing with thousands? Like... It's just Magic was just like perfect.
Yes. Yeah. It's not that there's anything wrong with people into Yu-Gi-Oh, but you look at some of those cards. Yeah. You look at some of those cards and it's just like it's literally like paragraphs of text, and
Yeah.
It's wild. It's just
It
a wild
it
time.
just felt very convoluted, you
Yeah.
know. And like if people want to do that, and like I like playing very convoluted Magic decks. Like
Yeah.
I like when there's just a lot of things that I have to keep track of and figure out how to do it. But I think that when it's just one card
Yeah.
that I have to keep track of for like all of that stuff, and it's like you can put these cards together and then it does this, and it's just what?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Um, oh, that's cool. Okay, so a lot of interesting things here. So talk to me about before you played Magic. You said you were a streamer. Like, what were you streaming before Magic stuff?
I was a variety streamer for a couple years. I started streaming, I think it was in like the end of 2017.
Okay.
Yeah, because I just celebrated my 6 year anniversary. It was the end of 2017. Um, I did a lot of like Nintendo games. Like
Okay.
I
Yeah.
would do run throughs of like Zelda games, Mario games, whatever. And then suddenly there was this big shift of me turning into like a Dead by Daylight streamer,
Oh, okay.
which is like one of the most toxic things that you could become. Which is funny also as someone who has never watched a classic horror movie or anything like that. Like I fell in love with that game, and I had like hundreds of hours in it. And so I was streaming that, and I was like pretty decent at it, and then suddenly there was another huge shift of going into like Magic content, which was mainly Arena.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think I'm not a streamer. I tried streaming during the lockdowns and it was not for me. I tried to do like quirky things. I think I had an exercise bike and I was streaming while I was riding an exercise bike. Like that was my thing to try to like stay somewhat active while being locked down. But
fair enough.
I'm always anyone who can stream. Like it's more props to you. It is a difficult thing. Like
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's socially very exhausting.
I think the socially and like the mental load it takes to maintain a stream channel, right? Because you're playing the game,
Yeah.
you have to watch chat, you have to like interact with chat, right? It's not just oh, like you're just you could sit there and not say anything, but like typically the more successful stream channels are ones where like you have a dialogue with your chat and you're kind of like going back and forth, and I think a lot of part of the at least from seeing some of the streamers I follow, I've seen like part of like becoming a successful streamer is pivoting to what's working, right? If you want to force like I'm just gonna play Mario games the whole time and no one's watching you, like cool, but like you kind of got to go where the market is a little bit, right? And that's kind of part of the I think part of the and it's nice when you can find a niche where like this is great. I'm playing Magic, I'm having fun, and like this is what I want to be. But yeah, the streaming thing like. That's I'm always like more props to you. Like I could not do it and have no interest, and it's wild.
It is so much to try to do. I feel like a lot of people want to try to make fun of streamers being like, oh, it's whatever, like it's not that hard or anything. And like I don't know, as someone who is very like neurodivergent and very like socially like I'm a very introverted and anxious, awkward person. I've kind of blossomed out of that in recent years, but it's a very difficult thing. And even aside from that, having to pay attention to that like market, what do people want to see? Pay attention to trends and having to do an entire setup that's like this big cinematic thing, like having multiple monitors, major lighting, like all of these cameras, like everything. There's so much work that goes into it that people just kind of blow off.
Yeah.
But it's rough.
Yeah.
It is kind of a rough thing to do. And I think that's why a lot more people are definitely going into more like short form content.
Yeah.
As opposed to doing live content now.
Yeah, short form is definitely, and again that's part of the job of being a successful creator. It's right is seeing trends. Like short form is like the big thing right now between YouTube Shorts. Obviously TikTok has been really big.
Yeah,
those kind of like bites.
Reels.
Yeah, reels exactly. So being able to like capture what's trending, because like that's if you want to be. there's a lot of like back end stuff I don't think people realize that go on with like successful streamers. It's not just you sit in front of your camera, you push record, and you play a game. There's there's probably a lot of people. There's a ton of editing that goes into after the fact. Like a lot of people turn their streams into YouTube videos, and there's like two of my streams that I follow a lot are the one Jame and Amazonian, right? And they take all their streams, on Twitch, end up going on YouTube, but there's like a lot more post production work that goes in just after the stream ends. Amazonian, they don't know her, but she'll does a series called Brawl Stars where she sits and she's taking notes on everything so she can turn it into like well produced YouTube content, which is like that's a lot,
It is. There's so much that goes into it. Again, that like people only like think that it's everything that they see on the surface. It's just you push a button, you're good. You push the button, you're off. That's it.
Yep.
But it's like, and people get their livelihoods from this stuff. I mean, I personally am also a full-time content creator, so like this is it's everything,
Yep.
There's so much that has to go into it in order to make it a sustainable thing, which is such a like difficult thing to do. This stat might be a couple years old. I don't know what it is currently, but I do remember, speaking of like sustainability, especially in the Twitch realm or just live streaming in general.
Yeah.
There was a statistic that was talking about average viewership on Twitch. Mm-hmm. Like, if you were to take a guess, what do you think the average viewership of all of Twitch is?
I know it's like low, isn't it? Like one or two people a stream or something like that.
It's literally one.
Yeah,
it is one because there's so many people that are either streaming to only one or to none.
Yeah, and
you do have like all of those big streamers, but it's not enough to offset that. And I actually think that it's gotten worse when the market became so oversaturated post like lockdown.
Yeah,
or like during the lockdown when everyone was just like, I guess this is kind of what I am doing now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's really sad, but there's a comic that goes around every now and again. It's like someone's like going on my stream, like, all right, everybody, it was a good stream, like, thanks for coming by, and they turn it off, and it's just like 0 viewers, and it's like these, and it's, it's, and for a lot of people, that's kind of what streaming is. Is you stream, and that's. Starting out, you stream to nobody, right? And you have to a lot of there is a little bit of luck to it, right? But a lot of it's putting in the work, it's having consistent hours and finding the right, hashtags or the right games or whatever. So it's a lot of work.
Marketing yourself on other like socials and things like. Yeah. And it's way more than just like, here's my going live link.
Yeah.
And that is a place where a lot of people unfortunately mess up in their marketing. It's just like, hey, I'm going live. And that's it. Yeah. But like no other tweets, just radio silence for any other aspect of their life. And like, it's like you become a performer for every, and this is just true to social media in general. You become a performer no matter what, like 24/7. If you're posting on social media, like everything in your life becomes performative.
Yeah. Yep. It's tough. So. It's a lot of work. So, just something to keep in mind when you see people out there and they're trying, and it's like, oh, like they just hit their buttons. Like, no. There's a lot going on behind the scenes there. So,
some people do just do that, but
yeah,
for the most part, like there's a lot to it.
Yeah. You'd also mentioned you were on a video game podcast. What was what was that about, or what was that podcast like, or what was that podcast?
So Video Game Bang was a just general like geek and nerd culture podcast. So we would record, if I remember right, because I haven't been on in like 4 years, but they are still running. We would do it like every Friday night. We would go to like Corey Vincent's house, who, for those who don't know, Corey Vincent, he is currently, I don't know what his current position is, but he works for NRG, wow. Which is that big esports company.
Yeah.
So he works for them, and so basically we would just report weekly on gaming news. Like it was anything in the realm of like games that are coming out, even just like movies coming out. I remember at the time I was on one of the episodes, and three of the other hosts were talking about like I believe it was Infinity War came out.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I'm not a Marvel person. And so I was just sitting there and I'm just like, uh-huh. Can we go to the next topic so I know what to talk about?
Yeah.
But yeah, we would just report on anything that was happening geek culture wise.
Yeah.
So video games, movies, comics, yeah, anything like that. Even sometimes in the realm of music, which is very interesting.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. I mean, it sounds pretty fun as someone who, what do my friends call it? My friends like to call me the Mario of nerd stuff because I know a little bit about a lot of things, but not like, that's the broad strokes there. But sounds cool. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty fun time. I mean, podcasts, anytime you can find a topic you're interested in and kind of get together with friends is probably a good time.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. It was such an awesome experience, and it got me out there like socially more,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like I was way more in tune with like learning how like geek news kind of works.
Yeah.
'Cause I would have to be one of the people that like goes online and figures out, all right, what's going on right now, and then like write show notes and things like that. Like seeing the production side of it is really cool, and it gave me a lot of experience that I'm super thankful for.
Very cool. Okay. Let me turn this ship back to Magic a little bit since I've kind of I've altered course a little bit. So
I've just got a lot to share. So
yeah, no, that's great. It's super interesting. Yeah, I had no idea about that. You had so much video game and streaming background, which is super cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you start playing Magic, you start drafting. So what was like what was your drafting experience as a new player? Like what were you like, did you like enjoy it? Or did you find it difficult, especially like when you discovered like constructed versus like limited formats? Like what was like that experience like for you when you kind of started playing?
I think like I got super lucky at like what point in Magic I got into drafting. So it was not too long before the release of Ravnica Allegiance, which is my favorite set of all time. Like I'm really stoked that we're going back to Ravnica at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I got so lucky because it taught me so many like fundamentals of like deck building with multiple colors. And finding those like overarching themes and archetypes and everything. So drafting for me was, I think it was like a little bit of a learning curve. I mean, maybe not a learning curve because I didn't really have anything to compare it to.
Yeah.
There was no other like magic history to compare it to, or other TCGs.
Yeah.
So I do remember there was one YouTube video that I watched, which was actually from Tolarian Community College. It was the professor talking about how to draft, and I just remembered bread, like that acronym, like just drilled into my brain. And then of course I would sit down at the table and I would just forget everything except for bombs. So, but I actually did pretty good. It was pretty decent. I had an amazing LGS that was very, very friendly and willing to teach me how to do things. Like they would take a little bit extra time, knowing that I was a new player. They would take extra time during the draft portion to be able to help me if I needed understanding like keywords or anything like that. So it was amazing. And then actually getting to play, like build the deck and play, it felt very natural. So I had a great time with it. Again, I just felt super lucky because of the set that I entered in.
Yeah.
With Guilds of Ravnica and Ravnica Allegiance, like there couldn't have been anything that would have gone wrong in that. Like I could put any colors together and it would have worked.
Yeah, that's interesting because that might actually be one of the best sets to jump into as a new player, especially in a drafting environment, because of how naturally the color pairings kind of work out.
Exactly.
You know, it's 2 colors, which is easy to manage. So as someone who the original Ravnica set was one of my favorite sets, seeing them coalesce like, you know, the color pairs into guilds was a very ingenious way of like kind of developing mechanics and kind of enshrining mechanics relative to color pairs. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's actually a very good. You know, I think you did probably get really lucky in that time frame for you just to like, yeah, this is kind of like how Magic has always kind of worked. But now you have like the associations, like, oh, like I'm a big Rakdos player, or I'm a big Simic player, and you know those themes have carried over probably for probably really Magic's not beginnings, but like a big chunk of like what Magic was always trying to be as a game. I had to laugh when you said Brett, because anytime I'm not a limited player, but I always joke with some people who are big limited players on the show. Like, I know Brett's my go-to, but I think I get stuck after the E because it's bombs. Oh, I don't even remember. Or hang on, removal, evasion. I think it's E. What's the A and the D though? I don't remember.
The only words that come to my mind, which I know are probably not correct, are like aggro and defense, but should we look it up? Do we look up Brett?
Yeah, look up. Because I always joke. I get to the E. This is why I'm really bad in limited, because I never know what the last two letters are. I figure when in doubt, just draft flyers, because that's, you know.
Bombs, removal, evasion, aggro, and duds.
Duds. So I tend to stick to the D portion when I draft. That makes sense. Duds.
Like I said, I only remembered B. I typically draft some very, very chunky characters, some pretty chunky cards.
So I don't even think bread is like the go-to acronym anymore. I was talking with someone and like, that's something to use. I'm like, I can tell you're being very nice to me right now. So, that's funny.
I just wing it now.
Yeah. You know.
And I'm over here like having people yell at me because I only run like 15 lands in my draft decks. People will scream at me and I'm like, it's fine.
It's fine. It'll work itself out.
I'll win, maybe, sometimes. What if I just build a 60 card in draft? It's okay.
If you have,
I have done that.
Less land, it just means you can draw more of your bombs.
Exactly.
It's just
you
math.
might not be able to play them, but you'll have them ready.
Yes. That's funny. So... limited player, do you play any constructed formats at all? Do you play like any commander or any like standard or whatever else?
I've been getting into commander over the past year. Funny enough, going back to the conversation about Magic 30, that was actually the very first time I ever played commander.
Really?
I had never touched commander before that in all of my time. Like, I've been purely a limited player in paper. Like I said, I got super into Arena. I was streaming Arena a lot, and my main format was Historic.
Yeah.
Specifically, because I'm about to get a little mad. Specifically, Historic pre-Alchemy.
Yes, I am not a...
Rest in peace, my Rakdos Aristocrats deck. Cauldron Familiar, you will be missed.
Oh, yes. Oh, God, yes. I remember that deck.
That poor boy. I almost made it to Mythic, and then the next season they changed it with like they messed with Cauldron Familiar, and I was just like, I'm never gonna be able to run this deck again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Commander I've like just gotten into within the past year. Funny enough, the very first Commander game I played was with a guy who would eventually turn out to become my boyfriend, who I'm moving to LA with. So
there you go. Well,
that's huge.
That's what is that? It's a Magic Meet Cute. Is that what it's called? Like
apparently.
There we go. That's well, that's awesome.
It was a very funny experience because he was he works for Command Zone, and so he had this big bag of goodies that had like Command Zone pins and game night pins, whatever. And he's like, "Oh, are you a fan of the show?" Like, and I just stood there and I'm like, "I've never heard of Command Zone before."
That probably blew his mind, to be honest. Like that's
I had never heard of Command Zone in my like at the time 4 years of playing Magic.
Yeah.
So, uh, but he's definitely been a big help getting me more into Commander. Uh, I played a lot of Historic, so
Yeah.
that was like my main constructed format. And then I've been wanting to get into Popper. A lot of people have been harping on me because of all of my bulk.
Yeah. No.
Get into Popper, build like a Popper cube, and I'm like, I don't know anything about cube. Like,
Okay, so two things. One, Popper is awesome. I have a bunch of Popper decks. I love playing Popper. Um, if my buddy has a Popper cube already, if you want, I'll ask him if he has a list. Because usually, I barely know what a cube is, so I'm just winging this right now.
yeah.
But I think typically a lot of, if you've never built a cube, sometimes having one to work off of, I will see if he has a list for you. He seems like he would, to give you maybe an idea of like where to start out. I feel like that's usually an easy way to build a cube.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's funny. I actually was supposed to draft it with him last weekend, and something came up. And I couldn't go, but he was like, "I have a Popper cube." I'm like, "Popper cube? Yeah, that's awesome." But Popper is really cool. Popper's really fun because, a lot of times you can kind of take out a lot of like high-powered cards from a format. And I don't want to say there aren't like powerful strategies, but when you're only playing with commons, like it's a different kind of world, right?
Yeah.
So,
let me just get into Popper Commander, and I'll just run Ornithopter as my commander.
I think so. I think there is a version. What's it called? I think it's called Artisan. I think who talks about it a lot? Who's a really big proponent? I think Kess Wiley talks about it a lot. Where it's you run a uncommon legend, because I don't think there are any common legend creatures. So your only uncommon is your commander, and then everything else is common. Your deck is common cards, which I actually think sounds super cool as well. Which,
that does sound super cool.
Yeah. Yet another deck to build. That's the problem with Magic. It's like I have like 3 or 4 decks just on my desk in addition to like a stack of decks ready, to work on. But Popper, the format itself is really cool. So if you're interested in, someone who probably has a bunch of common cards, which we'll probably talk about in a moment here, but it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Gosh, yeah, it's funny because like with how popular like Commander is, it's to hear someone who's like, oh, I never played Commander until like a year ago, having been played Magic for a while and kind of being in the creator space, like I don't know who Game Nights is, like that's actually, I'm actually almost a little astonished, like it's like impressive, like it's like wow, that's awesome to hear, like it's funny it's really easy to get caught up in like, well, everyone plays Commander and everyone but like no, there are players out there who are still just drafting and playing limited and all that kind of world. So
I'm true to my roots.
Yeah,
like, what can I say?
Yeah. So as a limited player, we had kind of talked before the show. They're changing drafting, right? They're moving away from set boosters and draft boosters to play boosters. So I did a little digging beforehand. By digging, I quickly Googled pricing. So what's interesting is, so people who may not be aware, which if depending on how much you buy packs, I think I looked up the cost of a set booster. The Wilds of Eldraine set booster box was $120 for 30 packs, so it works out to be about $4 a pack. A draft booster box, which is 36 packs, was only $111, which works out to be about $3.08 a pack. So what they're doing is they're basically they went from having 1 pack to splitting it into 2 packs, set boosters and draft boosters. Now they're kind of going back to the 1 pack model, trying to combine the two, but they're keeping it at the set booster price level.
Yeah. So
what almost works out to be, it's almost a 33% or a third price increase. So it's $1 more a pack, but 33% is that's a pretty high price jump for anything. So like as someone who primarily is a drafter, like what are your thoughts on this kind of change? Like you played before they even had draft boosters. Like what did you think of draft boosters? And like how does this change? Like how do you think that's going to affect drafting as a format?
So with draft boosters, like if I'm just like buying Magic cards, I'm like any other Magic player where like I'm going to opt for set boosters over draft boosters. Like if an LGS only has packs of draft boosters, then like sure, I'll buy them. clearly because I love drafting so much, then like I love draft boosters because it, you know, gives me my format that I prefer. And so I think that I I think that with the price increase specifically, I'm personally not mad at it. When you think about it as like with draft booster pricing, I've been to places that would do like my old LGS, who, like I said earlier, they had shut down. One of the reasons they shut down was for financial reasons. They would run drafts at only $12.
Okay.
Cheap, really, really cheap. And that's including like price support. So like
Oh, wow, okay.
so like you're also, my dog is now in the frame.
Oh no, dogs are always welcome. Please, there's been plenty of dogs on this show. Don't worry. I famously, and by famously I mean I was there. I don't think a lot of people watch the show, but Lexi, Black Girl Mage, her dog jumped right on screen, joined us for the whole thing. We are pro dog on this show, so
She's just a very vocal one, as you can tell.
I can tell.
Hey, do you wanna go somewhere else for a little bit? Can I be just like,
no,
right
please,
back?
please.
Okay,
and we're back. The dog is fed. It's very important to make sure your dog is fed. It's I will never not stop a show to make sure we take care of the dogs. What's your dog's name? What's her name?
her name is Tuna.
Tuna. That's an adorable name.
It has a story. It has a story if we want to hear that. But
You can't drop.
that could be for another time.
Nope, you can't drop a story about your dog named Tuna and then expect me not to ask what the story is.
It is a very short story.
Let's hear it.
But I got her as a puppy. So okay. There's a marina here, and I was just like taking a walk around the marina. Suddenly this puppy runs up to me.
Oh.
And then I'm just like, "Oh, you're so cute." I pick her up, and then this dude is like trailing like 15, 20 feet behind, comes up to me, says, "Hey, I got more dogs in the back of my van." Me being me, I'm just like, "All right, cool, let's go see." So I follow this van. He opens the back of his van. There are puppies.
Oh.
So like my judgment wasn't totally awful. Gave the man $300 for her, and then over the next like few weeks, I was like, she really you know how puppies have like puppy smell?
Yeah.
She did not have like normal puppy smell. Like she actually smelled like fish.
Oh. Okay.
And we took her to the vet. Nothing was wrong with her. She was perfectly good, perfectly healthy. She just smelled like fish. Like she just stank. And so her name ever since has just been Tuna. Because she just smelled.
Right. Yeah.
There's the little story. Also, a little mark against my judgment.
I mean, it's literally instead of like, "Hey, I have candy in the van," as I have puppies. You're like, okay. We are lucky.
It's like, yeah, sure.
So was the puppy that you picked up, was that Tuna, or was there a different puppy?
It was her, yeah.
Okay, so
it was her.
So it was
she
destined,
chose me.
though. Yeah, she chose you.
Yeah.
That's okay. Well,
exactly.
that is adorable. I'm glad that there were indeed puppies in the van and that you were not
yes.
kidnapped. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, my goodness.
Anyways, so we were talking about the new play boosters, and you were kind of talking about your old LGS.
Yes.
Cheap drafts, price support.
Yeah, $12 you could get into the draft, and that included like price support. Like it was very, very, very cheap. And again, unfortunately, they ended up closing down because they couldn't sustain themselves financially. There are places where I'm currently living where like the drafts at my LGS are only like $15 currently. Other places will have them at like $20. And like, if I'm going to go for the cheaper option for a draft, again, all of these including like the price support, which is generally really amazing.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to choose to go to the cheaper place,
Yeah.
Especially because it was like a much smaller store, and like I love them. I love those people at that store. But I really think that those stores, because a good amount of stores will price their current drafts, excuse me, at $20.
Mm.
I think that that's still like a sustainable cost that they can like do for this like dollar per pack price increase.
Yeah.
I think when you look at it, I think a $20 draft, if some places are already doing it, I think it's like it's a normal thing. And I don't think that $15 drafts are going to be sustainable anymore. I understand that drafting limited as a whole is going to become more expensive. I can only assume that pre-releases are also going to become more expensive
Yeah.
because of it. Um, and I mean, pre-releases are most people's experience with the limited format.
Yeah.
So I understand that a lot of people do have issue with it becoming a more expensive thing. Um, I personally think that when you break down what you have in those boosters and you dissect the potential for the experiences that you're going to have with those boosters, it is going to be a worthy cost. And I actually don't think that many stores are actually going to have to up their draft costs like at all.
Mm.
Like again, if you're doing $20 drafts, then I think that that can stay like pretty good, especially when you're thinking like you don't have to buy and try to sell two different types of product. So you're
Yeah.
having like there's so much benefit for the stores in that aspect.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think my overall opinion, I honestly think that play boosters are a really good move. I think it's a great direction that they're going into. And the way that they're basically they're making a set booster better, but for no price difference.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
In my opinion, making a set booster better. So
Yeah. It it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. I think the fact that they're decreasing, it's only one SKU, but like for a store, having to stock both set and draft boosters is probably a little bit of a pain, especially when you have multiple sets out at a time. Um, and I guess in reality, that I think the numbers all pointed to that set boosters were just outselling draft boosters by a substantial margin.
yeah.
So this almost might be a very clever way of kind of helping fix that situation so people can still draft, but also get a booster that's kind of, interesting for the non-draft player as well. So, it'll be interesting to see. I know when it was kind of first announced, a lot of people heralded it as the end of drafting, which, Magic players tend to be overly dramatic in general. Obviously, a 33% in price is not nothing, but hopefully it's something. Stuff is just getting more expensive. So if it is something that helps, an LGS maintain some ability to continue to draft, host drafts for people, hopefully that it does end up being a kind of a good move.
Yeah.
Wow.
I really think that if people I know that this is a very different thing, but if people just imagine it as like, you're playing a draft for the cost of a set booster instead of just like, oh, draft costs are going up. Like,
Yeah.
like you already know that set boosters cost more.
Yeah.
And the price from a play booster to a set booster is going to be the exact same. So, like as far as we know, as it currently stands, they're going to be the exact same. And so I really think that people think that it's just that it's a cost that's going up and not that your experience is also being elevated and what you can take home from that is being elevated, like having list cards be part of draft, having like you're getting more cards. Something that I truly hated about set boosters was connected cards.
Uh-huh.
And so being able to have that like not be like a thing is awesome.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Booster Fun was always an interesting concept, especially with the connected card thing. So yeah, I guess we will see how it goes. And
yeah, I would always like to advocate for like formats and just Magic is in general being like financially accessible. And I know that certain formats you can make it so by like proxying things or like, you can buy damaged versions of cards and play those, or there are ways to do it, but with draft, there's no workaround for it to be at a different price. Like, unfortunately, it's just going to be fixed. And like, for this change, it's just, it has to be that way. Some places may make their drafts $25, who knows, and that's, in my opinion, going to be a little much, especially all other things store related considered. But if you're drafting now for $20 instead of $15, I think for the overall experience, it might be better. This might revitalize drafting for all we know.
Yeah.
And the impact that it'll have on sealed too. Like,
yeah,
I think it'll be a really, really good thing.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be a wait and see. Hopefully
Yeah.
it plays out pretty well. I can't remember when they said, let's see, they're going to be launching them.
With murders
yeah.
at Karlov. I don't know why I always say Markov instead of Karlov.
Well, there's
my brain
there's
just
Edgar Markov.
Yeah.
And then there's
right?
Karlov. Tasa Karlov.
Yes.
There we go. Very similar.
My brain just, yeah. But it's, and also like murders, my brain wants to like alliterate it.
Yes.
So, yes. But murders at Karlov Manor? I think that's the set name.
Yes.
That's the set that it's starting with.
Yes.
So, the only set that we have now in between then is going to be Ravnica Remastered.
Yes, this is
and then we switch.
Then we switch. So, very cool. So kind of in line with drafting and limited players, you describe yourself as a bulk goblin. So, what about bulk do you like? Like, what is it that you have amassed over 200,000 cards, the majority of which are bulk?
Yeah. I think something about it was just that when I had a more manageable collection, I was just like, oh my gosh, I want to like collect all these cards, and like I had like the very optimistic collector mindset. And my collection was, like, even just a year ago, my collection was so much smaller. I could probably fit everything into, like, 2 5-rows. Like, only 2 5-rows, and that's it.
That's not bad.
Yeah, very, like, it was manageable. It was good. And I loved organizing and just seeing what I had and, like, looking at the art, looking at the history. And there was something about it where there are some cards that are just kind of like forgotten or not cared about that are considered bulk, even dating all the way back from like 1994.
Yeah.
And like I have bulk cards from 1994, which is absolutely crazy to me. And something that I love the most is seeing like the way that Magic has like evolved over time with like keywords being introduced, or even some like evergreen keywords before they were evergreen. Like it was just such a cool thing. And flavor text is one of those pieces to me that's like the most interesting, and why I collect bulk and why I like having these cards, because like it just tells a behind the scenes story that I think a lot of people overlook. So it's just really cool. Seeing the different artwork and the different flavor text is why I got into bulk. And it's just turned into this whole thing. And suddenly people were like, well, I want to get rid of my bulk. And I'm just like, I'll take it. And I opened a PO box. I have like 8 different, large flat rate USPS boxes in here.
Oh, really?
In my office right now, which fill about 5,000 cards. It is 25 pounds of Magic cards. So 200 pounds of Magic cards still in their shipping boxes. And then I have like 8 4-rows, 2 5-rows, and a ton of like 1,000 count boxes. Like there, and all of this on my desk behind me too. But like, yeah, I just really got into it because it shows like the history of Magic that I think not a lot of people really care about.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like for me, when I was like first starting to play, like one of the really sought after cards or cards I really liked using was Sarah Angel. And
Yeah.
Sarah Angel is like flying and attacking does not cause Sarah Angel to tap, right? But now it's just it's vigilance, like flying and vigilance, like that's it, Or like lifelink. I don't think lifelink is not a relatively newer keyword. Now I really did it, but like lifelink was not always like not an original keyword, right? Lifelink used to be when this creature does damage, you can get that much life. So I could definitely understand seeing like the different versions, and like the lore. Would you consider yourself like a slight Vorthos? Like, does the story stuff kind of interest you in addition to the gameplay?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I, there are only certain like mainstream kind of pieces of lore that I like am really versed in, when it comes to Magic. But overall, in like almost anything that I consume, I get really, really deep into lore.
Yeah.
And like we talked about this just a little bit before the show, but like I've been starting to play WoW Classic again, and that's mainly because like I love the lore, I love the world building, and it's like why Lord of the Rings is like my favorite series, and I have like an entire shelf on my bookcase dedicated to Tolkien's work.
Yeah.
It's like lore and the consumption of lore. It's so cool. It's so interesting to me how intricate it can be, and how everything is just like seeing all of the puzzle pieces like come together through all of these different like arcs in Magic's story. It's so cool, even with like the most random of cards.
Yeah.
But it really like, I think when people look at card art, they're just like, oh, this is cool. Like this looks awesome. But they don't realize like that the card art, and I even really didn't have it click for me until kind of more recently when I got into like current lore. Like when we had like March of the Machine, I think is when it really like actively clicked in my brain, where it was like, wow, these are like, if you were to take scenes from like a movie, like this is what's happening, and you can put these cards together in like the storyline. Like these are individual moments of what's happening in the plot, and it feels like I'm just collecting like single sentences of a giant novel with every single card.
I remember really experienced that when War of the Spark came out, and there was a lot of just like quotes. It was really like, it was in Gideon had the Black Blade and he had his Pegasus and he went to go fight Nicol Bolas, and then the sword didn't work and he was falling, and then like Rakdos caught him in the air. But like seeing that event play out through cards was kind of like, oh, this is really cool, like a way to like see the story kind of play out, because you don't think about that. Like, there's like cards and deck building, but there is a story behind most of these sets that kind of come out that they're illustrating through cards and gameplay. So and gosh, as someone who's also very into Tolkien, like we could probably just have a whole podcast talking about Lord of the Rings and the Lord of the Rings set, and just Lord of the Rings in general. But
that set was so good.
It was like I was surprised at how good it was. Like I figured it would be pretty good, but like it exceeded any sort of expectations I had. So like it was it was really nice. Well, so as someone who also likes to collect, part of me, the fun is collecting, and I like to do. I have like a binder. I have my special binder, right? So like recently, what I've been doing is, speaking of, I think March of the Machine, I've been collecting like the Planeswalker. There was the alt art anime version of the Planeswalker, the completed version, and then the art cards with the gold foil stamps. So what I like to do is like if there's multiple versions of cards, I'll have like, here's a column with like all three in a row, and like I'll put I'll look at them and I'll be like, yes, I like seeing them all kind of next to each other, all the different. So like for me, that feels it fills a hole in my soul to kind of see that kind of stuff. When you have your collection, like do you have like a sorting process or anything, like what with so many cards, like do you have like a way you like to sort them, or like just how do you handle all those cards?
Yeah, well, the thing is that I procrastinate as much as I possibly can. That's step one.
Yeah.
Just don't think about it. Don't touch them until you feel like you are drowning, which I have been for months. So this is gonna be a pain to move.
I can imagine.
But yeah. At least it's all in boxes. It's okay.
True.
It's okay. Um, I say all as if this doesn't exist behind me, so we're just gonna like
That
um
over.
so
Turn the cameras. No.
we're just gonna oh wait, there's more over there. There's anywhere you look in this office, there's just gonna be like cards that are just my floor is covered in cards. It's bad.
No.
Thankful that my dog understands boundaries and doesn't step on them.
That's good.
But yeah, once you make it past step one, which is the procrastination stage, my main thing is I like to I just kind of grab like a box and I'll start like a box that I know is not organized yet, and I start going through. I have like all of this space on my desk, and I organize things by set. That is my number one thing, is I organize by set. And then that's a very, very lengthy process, but it is very cool seeing like the different set symbols and like having it click with the cards, being like, oh, that makes sense why it's designed like this. Yeah. So once you sort by set, I go through each set individually, and I will organize those cards by color.
Naturally.
And then typically I take out the rares. I like to keep all rares and mythics in binders, as with all art showcase art, foils. I keep one of each foil, so like I'm not as much of like a foil goblin.
Yeah.
So like all things like that will go into binders. The only things that go into boxes are going to be commons and uncommons. But when I sort it out by color and I separate, you know, the rares, mythics, showcase, whatever, I then sort it by collector number.
Okay.
Which has gotten increasingly difficult within the past few sets, when you have sets like March the Machine, where it's like, oh, this should be like this is a colorless card, or like it's mana cost is colorless. Like it is an artifact card, goes at the very end.
Yeah.
But then it has that little blip that's just like, hey, you can like pay a white for this, and so it apparently goes in with the rest of the white cards, as with all colors. And then they also took out the before March of the Machine, I believe the last set to do it was All Will Be One. They had the out of collector number.
Yes.
And so it was like you had the number, and then it was out of how many are in the set. Yeah. And then like there would be some cards that only had that number if they were like out of that you knew that they were showcase or alt art. Like you could tell because they didn't have the second number. But as of March of the Machine, they fully took that out. So every single card is just like 001. That's it. No 001 out of like 357. Like you don't have that anymore. Yeah. So it's become a little difficult. But so collector number is step 3. That's step 3. Yeah. And then oh wait. Yeah. Hold on. My brain. I confused myself a little bit. Set, color, collector number. Yeah. Set, color, collector number.
Yeah.
That's easy enough.
Yeah.
There's typically a couple like 2A, 2B kind of steps that are in there.
Of course.
But overall it is organized by collector number. Rares, mythics, foils, showcase, alt art, all of that goes into binders. Also sorted by collector number.
Okay.
But within their respective categories. It's a lot. It is a very lengthy process.
It is. Do you find it relaxing though? Like when you sit down, it reminds me a lot of my wife used to do the adult coloring books for a while, and it was just a very kind of way to like kind of zone out, focus on something that's unimportant, but like
Exactly.
really clear your mind of a lot of stuff that's kind of going on. Is it like almost like a Zen experience for you as you kind of lay this stuff out and as you kind of do things?
Yeah, like I can fully zone out and just go into like autopilot. Like I've done streams where I sort bulk and you could see like how fat I'm like a dealer at like Vegas, like sorting cards just like with how fast I can like
Yeah.
just sort them by like the color or by the set or anything. It's a very relaxing experience for me, and that's one of the draws to like the whole bulk thing for me is that I like organizing it,
Yeah. Very
even
cool.
though it's not organized at all right now.
That's funny.
It's okay. There is one final fourth step, which is then putting everything into an online database because I'm purely curious about how much money everything is worth.
Yeah.
Primarily because I would like to eventually insure my collection, and
Okay.
I don't even know how much money this would be. So,
Do you have the database already started? Is that something you've been logging as you? Okay.
yeah, I typically log once I feel like currently I've only been logging if I feel like I've completed a set.
Uh-huh.
So one of the sets that I have completed has been March of the Machine. Like that's my very first logged full complete set. But once I get moved and I start like redoing things
Yeah.
and relogging things, I'm going to be doing it more as I go
Yeah.
and at like a lot slower pace so that it's easier when I'm doing it in like the chunks that I am. Cause it's like, well, there could be March of the Machine here. There could be March of the Machine there. And it's like, well, how will I know?
Yeah.
So it's just easier to do it as I go. I realized that a little bit late.
Yeah. It's, I mean, learning process, right? Like if you've never done it before, like you just got to kind of work out a system that works for you. So that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I wish you the best endeavors on cataloging all that bulk. I'd be curious to see what it looks like when I don't know if you'll ever will be done, but when you kind of get through, hopefully a good chunk of it to kind of see where you're at.
Yeah. It's gonna be a lot, knowing that it probably takes me a good like 6 hours to get through like not even a lot of cards, like probably 1,000 cards in 6 hours, like
Oh wow, yeah,
hardly anything.
yeah,
But that was also like when I was streaming it, so could be totally different when I'm just like working on it, totally zoned in. So
yeah, very cool. So outside of Bulk Goblin, you've also kind of, I think, dipped into being a little bit of a cosplayer. I know at the most recent MagicCon in Vegas, you were one of the Teysa Karlov Secret Lair outfits looks.
yeah, it was the City Styles.
City Styles, yes.
City Styles Secret Lair.
Yeah.
It's my very first attempt on cosplay, and it was very overwhelming. I think it turned out pretty decent for a first try.
Yeah, I thought you looked good. So first time, what inspired you? Like, what was like, what inspired you to kind of start a cosplay? Or what was the inspiration to like try to like nail that look?
I've been wanting to cosplay for years. Like, I've just always been interested in it, and I know how to sew. I know how to craft. I was working on doing like D&D minis and like terrain and stuff like that for a while. So I was like, what if I start working on like actual cosplays?
Yeah.
And I knew that I wanted to cosplay Teysa. I didn't know when I wanted to do it. Suddenly the City Styles one came up and some people were like, hey, you like kind of look like Teysa. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna take this and run because that is the coolest compliment ever.
Yeah.
And so I did it. I tried.
Yeah.
Put a lot of hours into that godforsaken coat.
Oh yeah, the coat.
The fur coat.
I'll pop up the picture of the card, but yeah, I thought you looked great. I know there was a whole kind of crew of Secret Lair cosplayers from where they all. And I probably should have asked this after taking the photo, but were you all the Cityscape characters? Was that the same Secret Lair, or was it? It was kind of a combination of things.
We had everybody. So it was Z was Massacre Girl from City Styles.
Hmm.
Peachy Pops was Paradise Mantle from City Styles. Um, uh, Ryan was, is it Sakashima? Was that the card?
Yes, Sakashi, that's correct. Yeah,
Yes, was Sakashima in City Styles, and I was Teysa Karlov. And then Zebex was actually not from City
that's
Styles, but
right.
was doing the other. I forget the name of it, but it was another one of those like streetwear style kind of like secret layers
It was the
for
Rebecca.
Sarah.
Yeah, it was the Rebecca Gay, Sarah. That's right. I remember
Yeah, yeah.
because that was I bought that secret layer because I'm a big fan of Rebecca's work. And
We
yes,
were only missing one character from the City Styles, which was I do not remember her name. Asusa or Azusa? I
Azusa,
forget
yeah,
how to.
Lost but Seeking. I
Azusa?
think it's Asusa.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I get it mixed up.
Yeah,
But yeah.
so, there's almost
So
feel like there's every combination of names with how many characters have been made, creatures have
yeah.
been made. So, yeah, you guys look great. I have a photo, so I will pop that photo up as well, so everyone can kind of see your cosplay. It's like, so that was kind of cool. I got to take a photo of that. So, so other than the code being a pain, like, did you enjoy it? Like, are there other cosplays on your radar for the future?
Yeah, yeah, I really, really enjoyed it, and like it was a huge learning experience of like what I can do to like do certain things better. I would love to redo the Teysa Karlov cosplay.
Hmm.
Um, I like specifically redo the City Styles one, like update it, make it a little bit more like accurate. Because there were some things that I missed or like didn't finish.
Yeah.
I want to cosplay Teysa just like as is. Specifically, I think it's the Envoy of Ghosts. I think that rather known as Boob Window Teysa.
Yes.
Uh, so I want to cosplay that one. And then I think actually the most like recent one that I've started has been Shadowheart,
Oh.
Baldur's Gate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I love Shadowheart. Specifically her, I don't know how her stuff changes in like the other acts because I haven't made it past Act 1. I burned myself out and I haven't touched it since it came out.
Understandable.
But her Act 1 camp like outfit where it's just the very like simple vest and like pants.
Uh-huh.
So I'm gonna be working on that.
Super
I
cool.
just bought like 9 yards of faux leather fabric to try to make it. So.
There you go. You got the bug. Is there, so now that you've done some cosplaying and you're working, is there, for any potential cosplayers out there, are there any things you wish you knew before you started, or any like tips?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think the a lot of people ask like how just generally how do I get started in a cosplay?
Mhm.
And it's such a hard question to answer because it's like, well, what do you want to cosplay?
Yeah.
Like, do you want to cosplay someone with armor or do you want to cosplay someone that's like just wearing like normal clothes? Which like if you can fully purchase like the outfit, it's literally just called a like closet cosplay.
Yeah.
I think something that I wish I was a little bit better at when I first started was just learning how to do like learning how to research very specific things, like knowing what to research.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, I'm trying to find a shirt that looks like this. How do I search for that?
Yeah.
So I think that that's like my biggest thing is just like just try like Google is your number one resource in just trying to figure out anything. And like you're gonna make mistakes and stuff. Like when I made Teysa's cane, I think that the cane turned out fantastic. It was a really fun project. I used a cane that already had like a skull on it, and then I used like modeling clay,
Okay.
or like air dry clay to wrap around to make that like coil, and then I painted it.
Nice.
But I wish that there were like certain other things that I did. Like it's a really heavy cane and also it's really fragile. So maybe if I decided to use like foam or warbler or like other things like that, but you work with what is like accessible, and it's okay to do that. You don't have to spend a ton of money on Warbler. You don't have to like do all of that.
Yeah.
Like so those are the top two things.
There you go.
I know I say a lot of stuff. Those are the top two things. Learn how to Google stuff and like learn how to ask the right questions, very specific questions. And it is okay to there's no right way to do it. It is okay to use whatever materials work.
Yeah.
There's no correct answer for it.
There you go. I think it's a pretty good advice for people trying to get into it. Because sometimes the hardest part for people is starting, right? They're worried about, oh, what if I don't look 100% accurate with this? But yeah, just go for it and have fun with it, right?
As long as you have key parts of it, people will be able to tell who you are.
Exactly.
I mean, like, I was worried about how I looked in my Tesa cosplay, and I was like, at least I'm in Vegas, and this kind of looks like normal Vegas attire.
You blend right in. People won't even realize you're cosplaying. Walk down Vegas Boulevard next
walk
to
down the strip,
down
yeah,
the strip, and
oh my gosh,
that's funny. So Nexy, you've been awesome. I would be remiss though if I didn't bring up the Birds of Paradise. So you are a bird. I've had a few birds on before, so I just wanted you to give you the opportunity to maybe kind of talk about the birds and like kind of what their goals are and what you all kind of do and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the birds have been so incredible to me so far. Like, it's just been a really, really good experience. And, unfortunately, I haven't been, like, as checked in recently. I've been dealing with some really bad health problems over the past couple months. And so I haven't been, I've been trying to, like do my thing online and still, like, try to keep up. Unfortunately, it's just been a little checked out from birds, but knowing how supportive everyone has been of me still, and like they're still so warm and like welcoming despite the fact that I've had to like be a little distant, has been incredible. Like, very huge shout out to Bobby. Like, Bobby is one of the sweetest, most incredible people I've ever met. And I'm so thankful to like call her my friend, and thankful that she invited me to be part of birds. So it's just like wanting that inclusivity and being able to give a safe space for people who are part of any minority group, it all like the morals and goals of Bob, like it truly speaks to like my experience in not just Magic but in the gaming world in general.
Yep.
Growing up and feeling very almost like ostracized for like my interests, because it's like I was a very I mean I still am a very tomboyish person. Like, I was always like very much bullied for my interests, and I grew up being part of like gaming industries and things like that where I didn't have the best opportunities because of like who I am. And being able to be part of a group that embraces that part of you specifically, I'm getting a little teary-eyed right now.
No, it's okay.
But embraces that part of you specifically is really, really awesome. And it's so cool, especially in like a world where there's just like everything's becoming so chronically online, and people are able to hide behind a screen and spew so much hate. And so it's awesome to feel like there is a safe space with birds, and I couldn't be more thankful for that group.
Yeah, I talk a lot. I like to talk a lot about community on this show, the importance of community and the importance of cultivating our community. Bobby Christine has been on the show. She's fantastic, and I think the goals the goals of birds is to provide a space for people to come and feel welcomed and included, and to be able to sit down and play games and not to worry about feeling in danger or scared. I think those are kind of the groups that are very important for a lot of spaces that can be a little hard to navigate if you are not just like a straight white male, right? There's heavily dominated spaces. So, I think the goal of the birds. I think you're a fantastic person. It's good to see you being a part of that group and seeing what they're out there trying to do. And I just anytime I can, I've had a few birds on. I just think you're all fantastic. I think the group's great. I just hope you guys continue doing the good work that you're doing. Now that we've got you crying, it's good tears, happy, emotional tears. It was
it's just great. Like, Magic. I'll be very blunt with it. Like, Magic saved my life. Like, this has been the thing that's really kept me grounded, no matter what has been like shaken up in my life. Like any like really toxic stuff happening, or like anything real world, like Magic has been like the place that I can escape. And it's great that there's a dedicated environment that's being cultivated to keep it that way for people and to embrace that for people, instead of like when you get into a game and with like randoms and an opponent wants to like attack you or do something just because of something that's not even game related.
Yeah.
Like, it's just about who you are or something. And, like, being attacked for your identity in a game, in a card game.
Yeah.
And so having that guaranteed place where it's like, this is okay. Like, we're okay. We have each other's backs, and like nothing's gonna stop that. Bop is incredible. If anybody viewing for whatever reason doesn't know about Birds Paradise, they are seriously such a fantastic community. And again, Bobby, oh my God. Like,
Bobby's the best.
I couldn't imagine a more perfect person to be in charge of that.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, Katie and Jordan, like, everybody that's part of Bop, like, they're such amazing names. I'm just so thankful for that community.
Yep. Yes, Magic, Magic is for everyone, and groups like Birds, I think, kind of help remind us that is the truth and the game in our community, that it is for everyone, and everyone should feel welcome and safe to come and sit at the table and play along. So, didn't mean to end it on such a emotional note, but Nexy, again, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. It's been fantastic. So what I like to do when I have guests on, I have them pick a charity of their choosing, and we make a small donation too. So you chose Extra Life. So the show and tell show will be making a donation to Extra Life as just like a small thing thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, it's been my pleasure. It's honestly, it's great. Like I said, I met you, I guess, a year plus ago you kind of like follow people on Twitter and you kind of see their careers or how they kind of it's just kind of great seeing you thriving and doing so well, and just I know you got a move coming up, so it's just great seeing people succeed in life, which is really cool. So also what I like to do, I do talk a lot about community, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pop on my community board. I'm just going like this, and what I like to do is to kind of be able to support my guests even after the show is over. I know you have I never know how to say it, Ko-fi. So
Kofi?
I think is. I googled it beforehand. And it's supposed to sound like no fee, so Kofi. I think Kofi. It might be Kofi. Whatever it's called. I don't know. I am not known for my not known to pronounce things. So, anyways, I'm gonna get to subscribe to the Kofi. See, I already lost it. Kofi.
I used to call it coffee all the time because I thought that's what their gimmick was.
Yeah, it feels like so. Whatever it's called, I'm just going to subscribe, so that way,
fine.
yeah. So that way, my show we can continue to support you even after the show's done. It's just it's not a lot, but even if it is a coffee a month or a week or whatever, just some little way that I can continue to support you and all the good things you're doing out after the show is done and going. You're out there. Sorting through hundreds of thousands of common and uncommon Magic cards. So
it's a lot.
yeah. So Yeah, again, Nexy, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I had a great time talking with you. I will, like I said, if you're interested, I will link all your socials below. I'll link the birds. If you want me to put your PO, I don't know if you still have a PO box for people to send you bulk. We could talk about that. I don't know.
I'm gonna be moving.
Yeah,
so.
we'll hold off on that for now.
Yeah.
But yeah, find Nexy on Twitch. Find her on Twitter or X or whatever your social media.
It's Twitter.
Twitter, yeah, of choice. So we'll link all that below. And yeah, if you like this show, feel free to like and subscribe. Power Dragon has kind of been like, tell people to do that kind of stuff. So this is going to be my call to action: is if you like what you're hearing, if you like what you're seeing, feel free to hit that subscribe button. It's fun. I like doing it. I like having cool people on.
Do it.
Just do it. Nexy said do it.
Do it.
Just do it. So
the Bulk Goblin tells you to do it. You do it.
The Bulk Goblin compels you. You can't argue with that. So Nexy, I hope you thank you again so much for coming on. Please give Tuna all the scratches for me because I'm sure she deserves it. And we'll catch everyone next time.
Thank you. Bye.